On this railway adventure, Scotland's Loch Ness monster, the castle of Shakespeare's Macbeth, and the stone of Scone on the ScotRail and Strathspey Railways. Hi, I'm Bernie Coppell. Just up the tracks, the elusive Nessie, a famed Scotch distillery, and the Rodeo Drive of Scotland. Join me from Edinburgh to the Kyle of Lochalsh on railway adventures across Europe.
Journey across the globe, from Scotland to China, with world's greatest train ride videos. Experience the breathtaking thrill and adventure of authentic train travel as you follow the tracks to unique history, fascinating people, and breathtaking scenery. All aboard!
We're about to embark on a railway adventure with the allure of mystery, the promise of beauty, and the romance of a culture steeped in centuries of glory, royalty, lore, and wonder. We'll begin our railway adventure in Edinburgh and travel through 263 miles of Scotland's most scenic terrain to the Kyle of Lochalsh. The spectacular sights, sounds, and places include Cawdor, where Shakespeare's Macbeth slew Duncan; the lavish shops of Princes Street, known as the Rodeo Drive of Scotland; a massed band of bagpipers, the home of the famous Black Watch Royal Highland Regiment; Highland Games, the Dewar's Whiskey Distillery; and the bottomless lake, or loch, of the world's most notorious monster. Stay with us for Scottish Highland adventures on ScotRail and the Strathspey Railway. All aboard for bagpipes, trains, and Highland Games.
Our railway adventure begins in Edinburgh, 350 miles north of London. From Edinburgh, we'll head north to Inverness, then west to Kyle of Lochalsh. A railway adventure through the glorious Scottish countryside is just one of the outstanding scenic routes on the ScotRail network for visitors to enjoy. ScotRail considers the Central Highlands and Kyle rail lines to be the most scenic railways in Britain. Passenger, you can enjoy an effortless voyage through this historic and beautiful land. Our adventure begins in Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland. Before boarding the train, let's take a moment to explore Edinburgh and visit ancient castles that were the focus of so much Scottish history. From the turret, you can look out across the entire city and countryside. And for those with money to spend, there's no better place than Princes Street, known as one of the finest shopping areas in Scotland. Stores are filled with the treasures of Scotland and reflect the proud heritage of quality craftsmanship. The Grand Railway Hotel, built in the Victorian age, will bring you back to the heyday of railroad travel in Scotland, a time when trains offered the only real alternative to horse and carriage. Waverley Station bustles below, with trains on their way to join the main lines of the Scottish Highlands. Just minutes from the station, passengers heading north will enjoy a thrilling experience. The Forth Bridge, built at the turn of the century, rides high above the water and offers spectacular views. The mile-and-a-half-long bridge gives every passenger a front row seat to view the beautiful terrain. Then on to Perth. The journey from Edinburgh to Perth will take 90 minutes. Perth is known as the Fair City and is built on the banks of the River Tay. The city is famous for its fantastic salmon fishing and beautiful settings. You can stroll along a graceful bridge built over 200 years ago and gaze at this historic city lining the riverside. Perth is home to the famous Black Watch. The Royal Highland Regiment is a reminder of this country's more turbulent times and was created to keep peace in 18th century Scotland. The famous uniform of the Black Watch is worn with pride today. A majestic peacock in all its glory struts on the grounds of Scone Palace. This was the abbey where Scottish kings were crowned over the legendary stone of Scone, until Edward I stole it in 1296 and took it to Westminster Abbey. Protestant reformers in the 16th century burned the palace to the ground, but it was rebuilt some 200 years later. The palace is home to a fine collection of ivories, porcelain, clocks, and needlework. You can enjoy these treasures while surrounded by the peacocks who call this historic site home. Our next stop is the Caithness Glass Factory. Visitors are able to see craftsmen create the fine glass products firsthand. The entire process can be viewed from a special glass-walled gallery. And in just a few minutes, you'll learn to appreciate the delicate work of making glasswork by hand. From the molding of red-hot glass to the final kiln process, everything you see being made is also available for purchase right here at the factory. Our railway adventure now brings us to the Dewar's Whiskey Distillery. Scotch whiskey is one of Scotland's premier exports. This blending and bottling plant can fill over 350,000 bottles a day and ships over 90% of its product abroad. With just a brief moment to enjoy the history of Perth, it's time to move on, but there's no need to stand in line to wait for tickets. ScotRail has introduced the open station system, which means you can now buy tickets right on the train. Our railway adventure leads us to Pitlochry. As the train draws near the station, there are decisions to be made. See the sights or sample the traditional Scottish knitwear and tweeds? But a street banner solves the problem for us. The ScotRail's Vale of Atholl Band draws visitors to the sights and sounds of the annual Highland Games. Cycle racing is a popular event and was added to the games in 1900. You can see heavyweights struggle for glory in the traditional tug of war. The pole takes strong hands and a powerful back, but it's determination and sheer manpower that wins in the end. That was brute force, while this is sheer grace and precision, the sword dance. Footwork and muscle power win the prize for tossing the caber, but this day nobody won. The caber just fell over backwards and never overturned. You see how high a true Scotsman can throw a 56-pound weight over the bar. Finally, the parade of the massed pipe bands. The Highland Games, a day of sports and spectacle for the adventurer. For the fishermen, salmon is the attraction. A special salmon ladder has been constructed on the River Tummel to help these fantastic fish bypass the hydroelectric station. This spectacular scene is called the Queen's View over the Loch Tummel. Queen Victoria made it famous when she stopped here in 1866. Our train adventure takes us on to the next leg of the journey, Blair Castle. Every express train from the south is met at the station by a minibus that will take passengers to Blair Castle. It's home to the only man in Britain who's allowed to have his own private army, the Duke of Atholl. This special privilege was granted to the family by Queen Victoria. Set in extensive parklands, Blair Castle dates back to 1296 and offers a traditional welcome to all visitors. A portrait of the present Duke hangs in the paneled entrance hall along with his collection of swords and crossbows. Today, the 10th Duke of Atholl still possesses enough medieval weapons to equip a small army, a reminder of days gone by and Blair Castle's turbulent history. In the dining room, visitors can see a silver table piece that was given to the 7th Duke as a wedding present from his tenant farmers. The drawing room's finely modeled ceiling and cornice look over a wealth of 18th century furniture and family portraits. The walls are hung with crimson damask and the chimney piece is white marble. These are just a few samples of the treasures that can be found in the 32 rooms of Blair Castle. From Blair Castle, our train sets out along Glengarry. Before long, passengers begin to experience the 18-mile climb to Drummuchtar summit. Here, the hills soar above 3,000 feet, but the powerful diesel locomotive makes easy going of the steep inclines and rise to the top. At just over 1,000 feet above sea level, we roll into Dalwhinnie, Scotland. Dalwhinnie is just a tiny community, but the mountain water is pure, clear, and cold, so they built a whiskey distillery. On guided tours, visitors learn that whiskey has been made here since the last World War, and you can see each stage of the whiskey-making process. Master craftsmen mix barley and water in huge copper stills to make some of Scotland's special spirits. One secret of the product that has made Scotland so famous is the quality of the water and peat. But here the true secret is years of storage in old sherry casks. And it's ready to sample at the end of the tour. Our railway adventure now takes us into the Cairngorms, a range of mountains with 4 of the 5 highest peaks in Britain. This mountain range is home to the Highland's vast sports centre at Abermore. Now it's time for a change of pace, and passengers will move from the diesel to steam trains for a trip to the Boat of Garden on the Strathspey Railway. Once the carriages are coupled for the journey, get ready for 5 miles of nostalgia each way. On the Strathspey Railway, there's never a chance of being stranded by a railroad strike. Drivers, firemen, and the entire staff are all volunteers. It's just like it used to be: steam, smoke, and the soothing clank of the rails. All a part of our railway adventure. The Strathspey delivers passengers to our next adventure, a ski lift to 3,600 feet. The lift brings visitors to just 500 feet from the summit of Cairngorm. From there, you can see the entire countryside, look down to the winter ski slopes, and enjoy the cool mountain breeze. Waters gather on the slopes and feed the many lochs, or high mountain lakes, below. Loch Morlich is the heart of the Glenmore National Forest Park and is fed by the mountain waters. The lake sits at over 1,000 feet above sea level, and a careful eye can see reindeer among the Scots pines and silver birch near the shore. This beautiful place is regarded as one of the most scenic inland lochs of Scotland. You can enjoy the sandy beaches and facilities for fishing, sailing, or take a restful canoe ride along the shoreline. From Loch Morlich, it's back to the train station to complete our adventure north. The train crosses the Culloden Viaduct on its journey north. It's 1/3 of a mile long and built over 29 arches. The bridge spans the River Nairn and leads us to the capital of the Highlands, Inverness. The city of Inverness is home to another wonderful example of railway building construction, the Station Hotel. Guests checking in will shortly be greeted by a magnificent staircase that sweeps visitors up to the first floor. This elegant hotel brings back romantic memories of elegant times gone by. Inverness is located on the River Ness and is guarded on the east bank by the Inverness Castle, rebuilt in 1834 on the exact site of the original, which dated back to the 11th century. On the west bank, the Inverness Cathedral stands watch over the river. It was built in the 19th century. Inverness lies at one end of the Caledonian Canal, which was built by Thomas Telford in the 19th century. Cutting right across Scotland through Great Glen, 4 locks were built into the waterway to give the great sailing ships of the 19th century a safe and swift journey from the Irish Sea to the North Sea. Today, the 60-mile canal is home to pleasure boats. Visitors can tour Scotland's most famous high mountain lake, Loch Ness, by motor launch. The boats travel along the entire length of the loch. Throughout the summer, there are daily ScotRail excursion trains from Kingussie, Avamore, and Inverness that meet with the Loch Ness cruise. It's a whole day of adventure and time to wonder about the tales of the deep and the Loch Ness monster. We continue our railway adventure on ScotRail. On our way back to Inverness, we pass the ruins of Urquhart Castle, and we once again are reminded of this land's violent past. Built in the 14th century, this was one of Scotland's largest castles and commanded an impressive view of the loch. Beautiful beds of flowers and lush green lawns give welcome to visitors of the Cawdor Castle. Just a short ride from Inverness, Cawdor Castle brings us back to the time of Shakespeare. It was here that Macbeth murdered Duncan. Today, the massive walls of this wonderful castle create a warm and comfortable home for the Lord and Lady Cawdor. Visitors tour the original kitchens of Cawdor Castle and see the brass and copper cookware. In the gift shop, you'll find many reminders of those days gone by. From the Inverness station, we depart for Kyle of Lacosh. Observation cars are added to some trains with tour guides to point out the sites of interest. These luxurious trains offer armchair seats and a buffet meal. It costs a little more, but it is first-class service at its finest. Once out of the Inverness station, we travel across the River Ness on a spectacular arched bridge. We'll pass along the shores of Beauly Firth and can see the Black Isle in the distance. On both sides of the railway, the views change with every moment and provide an endless stream of images. The Kyle line runs west from Dingwall through thick forests, majestic mountains, and lonely lochs. Poems are written about the scenes you will enjoy from the comfort of this elegant train. Your adventure on the Kyle will pass one poetic village after another. Auchinalt, Auchnashin, Auchnashellick are all part of the trip. Victorian railroad builders used wagon loads of explosives to blast through the rock on their way. It was the dedication and iron will of these men that's provided us with the smooth, effortless ride we enjoy today. Every bend in the track reveals a new, spectacular sight. The train now travels into Plochton, set on a high peninsula in the Loch Carron. Out of every window, there's a picture-perfect scene, like the row of cottages set against the hills of Applecross. Palm trees grow, sheltered from the Highland weather. And for those who love to sail, there's no finer haven. In the distance, the mountain peaks on the Isle of Skye signal our adventure across the Scottish countryside is coming to an end. But not before we see another engineering milestone for the Victorian age. The Portnacloish Cooting, an 80-foot deep trench cut in solid rock. From there, the track heads along the coast into the Kyle of Lacosh and the main ferry stage of our adventure. So far, we've traveled 263 railway miles on our adventure from Edinburgh. You can sample some of the local cuisine and enjoy the wonderful view, the Isle of Skye ferry preparing to dock just down the coast. It only takes a moment and a few hundred yards to cross the bay, leaving barely enough time to take in the beautiful surroundings. Skye is rich in myth and legend, and the towering Quillan Hills lay in testament to the tall tales of local farmers. The majestic Black Hills also create a 6-mile arc to encircle this tiny island. Whitewashed houses and beautiful cottages dot the foothills and add local color to the landscape of the Isle of Skye. Our island visit is the last stop before our journey home to Edinburgh.
Our railway adventure through Scotland's Central Highlands has something for everyone. We found mystery, history, romance and beauty all along the tracks from Edinburgh to the Kyle of Loch. We hope you've enjoyed bagpipes, trains and Highland games. I'm Bernie Coppell. Join me for the next Railway Adventures Across Europe.